Let's cut the bullshit.
Just drop the job.
Adam and Simon's Bullshit Busters.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Small 99 podcast with me, Simon Batchelor.
Me, Adam Bastock.
This week, we are going to be talking all about energy and all of the different things that are incorporated into the term energy. We're going to be unpacking some of the misconceptions around, I guess, energy usage, where it comes from, why that's important, and also start to touch on a couple of the things we can do to address our energy usage or to examine it in more detail. So, Adam, do you want to start us off by talking a little bit about what we mean by energy? Because it's a big term.
Yeah, because I think energy, it does include things like fuel use and electricity. Typically, when I say energy, I do refer to it just as being electricity, which is technically incorrect, but I think more kind of colloquial of how that language is used. And essentially, it's your energy bills, right? So it's the gas boiler that's sat in your kitchen that's whirring away. It's the electricity that's powering your laptop or whatever device you're watching this on. And I think it's the most tangible thing that we have with sustainability more broadly, because one, it is so attributed to bills, so you can see the financial impact of it. And I think the interesting thing when you dive down into net zero and sustainability and carbon footprints and the more technical aspects of this is essentially what you're measuring is where anyone in that process is using energy and how they're generating it. So if you look at, and not to rip open the can of worms just immediately on this, but if you look at the concerns around something like an electric vehicle battery, and a lot of the criticisms of that around the mining and around the extraction of the resources, well, the reason why people are saying that the battery has got a really carbon footprint and why it does have a really big carbon footprint is the amount of energy that is going into extracting that material, and then the amount of energy that's going into making that material into a usable object, and then the amount of energy that is used to power that kind of object once it is used. In the same way that for petrol, it is about extracting the oil, the energy to extract the oil, the energy to refine the oil, the energy to transport the refined oil, the energy to then take your car to the place where you collect the refined oil to then use it to burn immediately in your car. And so that's why energy, I think, is such an interesting, such a big topic, and that's why I think I refer to it as electricity, is because that feels far more manageable. Whereas energy as a system, you're essentially identifying where in your supply chain is someone burning something for your benefit, and that's where it can get overwhelming, because you're suddenly aware of that knock-on effect. I'm doing all of this very hard trying to avoid saying scope 3 emissions and immediately busting some bullshit kind of bingo cards into this. So I don't know if there's a prize for that, but yeah, it's quite hard. So we'll come into scope 3 at some point, I'm sure. But...
No, that was good. Yeah, you made it like 2 and a bit minutes without mentioning a scope, so that's pretty good going. I mean, essentially, I think you're right. Energy is a broad term, and for most businesses, yeah, you're right. It's going to be a bill, and for me, it's a really good starting point when it comes to looking at your business and looking at where there might be some efficiencies or cost savings. So we've already spoken in another episode about the kind of overall benefit to your business is that you get to look at your whole business. And actually that is a process that not enough business owners go through, is taking apart the process and looking at it and saying, right, what are we doing this for? Why are we doing that? Why does that thing go there? And why does this do this? Why do we spend so much time on this? Why are we paying for that? That's the kind of thing you would do with a business coach. And actually, it's the kind of thing you can still do with a business coach, but you can do it with a sustainability lens. And you can start to say, well, hang on a minute. Why is that thing plugged in and on overnight, every night? If you get yourself one of these little smart plug things, you can measure the electricity that all of your devices are using. So about almost a month ago now, I bought smart plugs and plugged all of the things in my office into these smart plugs. The idea being that after a couple of months, I'll have some data that I can then look at and say, right, well, my office, as it were, is using this much electricity. Now, I'm not using an enormous amount of electricity, but I'll be honest, I'm mainly doing it to prove the point of this is how it works, and this is, the kind of data we can measure. But if you've got a larger building, or particularly if you're in, manufacturing or assembly or fulfillment, then actually you're likely using quite a bit of electricity. And as you say, there's there's a number of places at which efficiencies and savings can be made. And I think often it's right under your nose is the easiest one to get to, and it's probably the one that everyone's overlooking, because everyone just goes home at the end of the day and doesn't think about it anymore until they come back in, not realizing that overnight has cost them 20 quid in electric.
But I think also it is literally, and sometimes where there's a great story is the wrong word, but example I heard of basically this business had been on an energy efficiency drive and done loads of stuff to the materials of the building and made it really kind of insulated and really all that stuff. However, like during winter, I think during these works, it was actually really drafty in the office. So they walked around and realised problem was because in their efficiency drive they were trying to centrally control all of the heating to the temperature in the building and centrally heat it, and it was all right in winter because sunny days it would heat up the building if it was because it was so insulated, but if not it wasn't. But what they were finding is the basically the air conditioning was set too low, so everyone was absolutely freezing in the office even during summer, and everyone had under their desk, this is why I thought of the under your nose thing, is that it was under the desk people had personal fan heaters that were then just blowing hot air over their legs to warm them up while the air conditioning in the building was trying to cool them down. And so you've got this really highly insulated, sustainable building on paper that has been renovated to a high standard, but then the human behaviour in it was just conflicting and fighting against everything because people weren't too cold. So I think that's where I think energy really comes into it as well, of understanding how people are using energy. Like you say, with the monitors that might be being left on overnight, well, actually that might be consuming energy, but then if people are coming in the morning and turning on loads of fan heaters and the air conditioning's on, that's going to put that into context. And I think this is why starting with energy is a really good one, is you can very quickly gather data on it. You can very quickly start to build a picture of actually what should I focus on? Where's the context of this in terms of the quickest wins, if you want to call it that, or the low-hanging fruit, to use a overused term, but also just that it is the context is key with all the sustainability, is people don't always think about that. They might be focusing on the light bulbs, where actually then they've got this really leaky office that's using thousands of kilowatt hours of energy a year on air conditioning that people don't want. So that's why I think it's easy to start with, because everyone knows what it looks like. It's incredibly easy to draw a financial impact and a return on investment for it, and you get billed it every month. So it's tangible, it's visible.
Well, yeah, and you can literally measure the saving,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
I think is key, isn't it? It's a really good one to get started with because, as you say, it is so tangible, and I think it's something that everyone can get behind. And I think it also has maybe like a bonus knock-on effect of once you get a kind of team bought into the fact that they're saving energy, they might then go home and think, hang on, I've got this old knackered fridge freezer from like the 70s or whatever. I wonder how much energy that is using. And they might measure that and then be like, oh my word, and they start to look at their own lives and think, I've got all this stuff that's just plugged in and I'm leaving on and it's costing me a fortune. And then they can reduce it as well. And I think it's those little actions that cumulatively add up to make a huge difference to the whole network and that change. And it might feel odd, like, well, yeah, okay, I unplug a few devices in my house, let's say, and save, a few kilowatts a month. So, well, actually, if everybody did that, or a large proportion of people did that, that saving really adds up. It's megawatts.
Just a couple of examples of that. I think fridges are a really interesting one, where they are the one device where it is more cost effective to basically replace an old fridge with a new one, because it is going to save so much. And there was a good story of someone who'd used a smart plug to identify, I think, that energy vampire in the office where they didn't realise the fridge was using so much, because they thought it's second-hand, it's an old fridge, that's the best thing to do rather than buying new, until they looked at how much energy it was using. And I think they were a charity that had like a small office, so weren't really thinking about it. The second one on that, I think the employee engagement or team engagement is a really key one. And again, another business we did some work with in a workshop, they were going to go away and use the smart plugs on the kettle, because they were fed up of this office of 20 people coming in, and every time someone would come in the mornings, they'd reboil the kettle. Now, a kettle uses about 3 kilowatts, an hour or whatever it is for how long it's on. So it's it's probably the highest power device you have in your building, apart from maybe the boiler. And therefore, it's a great way to start engaging people, to go, well, every time you're hitting that button, that's probably costing 10, 15p. Okay, it's not much individually, but when you've got 20 people doing it every hour, it starts to rack up. So putting like a little graph and just being able to track that usage per week and go, well, actually, how do we engage the team on this to save money? How do we maybe gamify it a little bit and do free biscuits for anyone who saves a pound's worth of electricity? Is a really great way just to bring that context in. And I think that's the key word I would use here. Is the biggest challenge I have in workshops and training around sustainability is context. Is people often worry about things. Sometimes those things are two small things, and they're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Is sort of how I describe it. Of
Yeah. Yeah.
stop worrying about that kind of that monitor being left on overnight if you do have a fridge that's hammering through a few kilowatts of electricity
Yeah,
because it's
right.
so old. Now, it's not wrong to care about both of those things, but you need to have the context to make those decisions, and that's where things like smart plugs come in. That's where things like smart meters come in really useful, and just paying attention to your energy bills and going, is this normal for a small business for what we're using? Doing a bit of Googling, you can start to find sort of average stats on that. The difficulty is if you're in a tenanted premises or you've got a landlord and stuff like that. But again, smart plugs are a great way to take back control and understand that data.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, a few years ago, energy for business particularly was so cheap. It was almost hard to get people engaged unless you were using megawatts or kilowatts on your bill. But as we'll all know, with the tripling or even quadrupling of energy prices in the last couple of years, actually that is really a focus for a lot of businesses now.
Yeah.
And I think it's obviously coming to the forefront of people's minds. So some people will probably be sat there thinking, well, yeah, but what about the energy supply? And hold that thought, because that's going to be another episode. We're going to come back and do energy supply completely separately, because where it comes from is almost as important as what you're using it on. But the key is, if we all use less electricity, then cumulatively or collectively as small businesses, we have not only the impact of within our small business, i.e. lowering your bill and therefore lowering your overheads and your costs of goods, but also that team impact of encouraging or maybe inspiring some of your team to go home and look at their energy usage. So it is a network effect, if you see what I mean. So it's definitely something to have a look at. So there's more information on how to save energy as a small business on the Small 99 website. So do go and check that out. And there is also some guidance from a Small 99 expert as part of the Carbon Reduction Plan workshop that will be happening near you. And that is essentially where a Small 99 facilitator guides you through making a measurement of your carbon footprint and then how to reduce it. And both me and Adam are ready here with the cards. So there's some ideas here. And essentially, there's the 5 cards, the 5 areas of your business that the facilitator talks you through and then gets you thinking. It's a great way to engage your business and take that first step on your sustainability journey. Again, you can find all of those details on the Small 99 website. So until next time, thank you very much for listening and watching.
And we'll see you soon.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's cut the bullshit.
Just drop the job.
Alan Simon